Now, I mentioned today that I'll be speaking with someone who survived the Sydney Lindt Café siege and who's come out of that experience with her life very different and changed. And yet, it's a unique story of forgiveness. Please welcome Louisa Hope. Now, Louisa, when you went into, it's good to talk to you again, but remind us that you went into that cafe just shy on 2 years ago.
Yes.
You're going there with your mother to a very popular venue in the middle of the city, and as you're having coffee, in walks somebody, and the world changes. What is that like?
Well, at first, Keith, I thought it was a joke, which seems so silly, but I could not imagine that it would be anything as drastic or dramatic or life-threatening, you know. And so, yes, it was a moment, actually, when I saw the gun, is when I realised that it was not a joke, it was very real.
What goes through your mind at that moment when you see a gun and you're in that sort of situation?
Well, it was just so unreal that your brain goes a little fuzzy, actually, but quickly you realise, well, this is not a joke, what's going to happen? And he's telling us that if we do what he wants, we'll be okay, but at the same time, he'll kill us. So, you know, it's that sort of duplicit, double-minded sort of thing that actually went on through the whole day.
So you go through 17 hours of this experience of switching from one emotion to another. Were you in that place very scared?
You know, it's an interesting thing. I've realised, having been there, as a Christian, I have that core peace of God that surpasses all understanding. But then my logical brain would kick in and say, you can't possibly survive this circumstance. You are going to die in this moment. So I think I realised for the first time how the Spirit of God is in my own life and in my own heart, but at the same time recognising that logically things didn't look good. They looked very scary.
You've got to keep yourself going. I should imagine you might say you've got to sustain yourself in that kind of situation. What did you do to do that?
Well, we had a very busy day. He kept us very busy, concentrating and focused on his desire for media attention, to get the Prime Minister to come and speak on the radio, all that kind of stuff. So that was a very busy time for all of us. But at the same time, you know, in your own heart, you have to maintain yourself. And for me, that was about, you know, praying without ceasing. And that's a very real thing and a great comforter. And I think, you know, like Scripture was running like ticker tape through my mind, I think is the only way I could describe it. But just to sort of maintain that steadiness and not do anything rash yourself and mind other people. I was looking...
When we look at you now, you seem well put together. You have a lovely smile, and yet really that experience was a very difficult one. And I think it's a journey of forgiveness too, isn't it?
I think that, you know, forgiveness is a very interesting sort of thing for me. I always maintained from the very onset that I was never going to give that man that part of my heart that I would then have to go to forgive him. It's almost like I didn't let myself hate him or be fearful. He was a bad man who was doing a very bad thing. But I do recall a time when I was in hospital when I faced the core of fear. And that took a little time for me to work through.
So that was a critical a turning point, if you like.
Yes, really.
Yeah.
It was.
And you got, of course, a legacy. You had a wound as a result of gunfire and all that was happening in that moment. So that's a constant reminder. But how do you see the experience now in a positive way?
Well, I see that for myself personally, I have a determination that we are going to get something good out of what happened to us. And I say us because it wasn't just the people in the cafe, but it was our whole country. Everyone was involved that day. And so I think that for us as a nation, we need to be thinking about how we're going to be ready for next time, unfortunately, and how we can maintain a heart of love and compassion for people.
And what next for you? What's the future hold for you?
Well, Keith, I really hope that I can be more involved with my nurses because we started the Louisa Hope Nurses Fund at Prince of Wales Hospital. And that's a great joy. It's a very happy place for me. But also I'm keen to encourage our churches in general, but also our whole nation around how we can enjoy and be very positive and affirming around our glorious multiculturalism. So that's where I'm going. That's where I'm headed. So yes.
Now, Louisa, just before we go, I'd like to just thank you not only for being with us, but being open about your story. But somebody who's watching the programme, who may be struggling with forgiveness or an issue like that, something that really can be very, very difficult to handle. What would you say to them?
I'd say to them, first of all, that it's quite possible for you to be free of the anxiety that keeps you down, really, and that you can overcome that. And for me, it's a practice. Every day you get up in the morning and you choose to be grateful. And, you know, I've got an injury and it holds me back sometimes, but just the same, I choose to be grateful and thank God. So I start with gratitude and then push through and believe that whatever's coming my way that day, good or bad, God's brought me there.
You have a positive look on it, and is it possible for you to see this as a positive experience, even though it has all the awful aspects?
It has many awful aspects. However, I believe that God's purpose is here and that good things will come out of this circumstance. And I hold on to that, and I hope that we can all work together for that.
Thank you ever so much, Louisa. Very special person who's been able to share out of her own experience. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Wesley Impact. And I hope the comments from Louisa are beneficial to you. Do you have to deal with something that is there all the time, and you need to be able to get beyond it somehow by reaching out to the God who, just like with Zacchaeus, is ready to bring you down from your tree and come and share in your life?